have the icon on the screen. Everybody knows what an icon is today. You know, what's an icon? And they say, oh, it's the thing you click on the computer. You say it to a 2-year-old and he could tell you. Yeah, but this place is full of real icons. And of course, icons in the traditional sense, in the theological sense, stood in for God. You know, it was a living representation of the Creator. And each thing here is that. It's an icon. It's not the real thing until we get closer to the end, until you meet the host. But these are all icons directing you to the host. I mean, when you click on the icon, the page opens. The icon is only a representation of the real thing. You know, you click on it, the real thing opens. You get to the actuality of the thing, the core of the thing. So when we look at these things, they are reminders, constant visual reminders. Now we saw out there how the water engages the senses. Here we have the visual engagement. Everything is visual. Look. You see, the first thing you should do is look. I was discussing with Father Podrick there at Easter time how when you come into a church, you shouldn't have to wonder what time of the year it is. You should just look at it and it makes sense to you. Everything there, you just look at the altar, you look around, and you know what time of the year it is. Because, of course, the liturgical seasons should rhyme with the natural seasons, as they do. And again, it's binding us to the world, to the environment, to creation. It's a reminder that, we are going to the source of creation, that it mirrors what's happening in nature. Too many Catholics think that, they have nothing to do with or nothing to say about the environment. Of course, they have everything to say about the environment. In fact, Catholics are the only people, I think, that really seriously care about the environment, if they're really Catholic. Because, again, they realize that this is not something that's given to them for their own consumption, the world, that is, to be used and abused by us without regard for future generations. It's a gift of creation. The fields, the crops, the roads, everything that we have done with it, a gift. So this mirrors the natural cycle of things in here. In a few weeks' time, we'll celebrate the end of time. Christ the King, the endings. But of course, not the endings. We have winter every year, and we don't say, right, that's it, it's all up, it's the end of story. We get ready for, once the end comes, we get ready for a new beginning. And so we go from Christ the King and the apocalyptic Gospels straight into preparation for Christmas, a new birth. And we do so, by the way, before everybody else does. They consider January the 1st, but of course the growth is always happening underneath the ground. It's only the physical icons of death in the leafless trees. What's happening below ground is what's important, and that's where the hidden source is. So when we look at the shrines then, which are, of course, in every church, multiple shrines, we get that sense of the icon, the icon. Now, of course, these are not the real thing. We don't know what St. Anne looked like. We have no idea what she looked like. In fact, we have no idea what the Virgin Mary looked like, let alone our Lord. So they're icons. They are representations of the real thing. And they come to us from the vague descriptions, historical descriptions that we have of how people lived at that time. They are reminders, representations, symbols of what it is that we do here, and that Jesus too belonged. He belonged. His was a home too, a very natural and normal home, by the way, and a very impoverished home, a humble home. This is why, I often have to laugh at Renaissance pictures of the beginning of Christ's life. You think he was born into royalty. He wasn't. He was born as humble as any homeless child today. In fact, they were homeless when he was born. So we have to remember that although, however beautiful these might be, they are not the real thing, but they are reminders of the real thing. And they help us to come to terms with the real thing. It's like a photograph. When you go into anybody's home, you see photographs, not the real thing, of course. They are reminders, and they're snapshots in time. And then they bring us to a point in time like the ones that we have there displayed of the parish community. That's not the parish community on that board. This is the parish community. When you come into this church when there's nobody in it, that's the parish community. You can feel, everything in here is endowed with what the German romantics like to call spirit. Everything. Everything was made. You can tell a story about the chair, the design of the chair. You look at there's a little thing at the back which tells you who made the chair. You can trace the chair back to its origins. And the same too with these things. They are endowed with spirit. The spirit of the makers, the spirit of the creators, and their relationship to their religion and to their theology. The theology of the time that was in the air. They didn't learn this stuff. It was in the air, which is not nowadays. And that's why I think the experience will become even more precious to the youngsters, because the children of Siberia, as I'm referring, because while it was the norm for us, and the norm becomes very stale very quickly, it's not the norm for them. And that's why to make it extraordinary for them when they come into a place like this can leave such an indelible impression, because they're so unused to it. I want to see that again. When you're looking at representations all the time, as they do on the screen, it doesn't match to the real thing, as they soon find out. Reality is becoming less and less the norm. I know that sounds paradoxical, it sounds absurd, but that is true. Which is why, again, real and rooted things are precious and important, and why we have them on our side. We can say, well, here's another experience for you, if we market it right, that is. The notion of the votive candle, by the way, is important, because here we have our first introduction in the church to fire. We've already seen water, symbols, archaeology, architecture. Now we have fire. Again, another tangible thing, another real thing, which of course, again, as I'm saying to you, we don't have in the so-called real world anymore, or the virtual world. So we light the fire. And everywhere here again are these, symbols of reality. Fire, food, water, oil, wine, wax, all of it, real stuff. Bringing us down to earth and showing us how the earth is infused with the spiritual. So we light the fire. Now, this notion of the votive candle is, again, to remind us of the saints and the dead, and to pay homage to them. It's the symbolism is quite recent, actually. It's only a couple of 100 years old, well, for 400 years old, and it's symbols of, these votive candles are symbols of, as they put it in the old missals, prayers of the worshipper is offering for him or herself or for other people. It's simple as that. They are symbols of the prayer. But notice that it's fire that is a symbol of the prayer to the saint, or to, and when we bring the petitions and the intentions of the living, the dead, and the unborn to the saint, or to Christ himself, if he's depicted here, we are leaving the prayer burning in fire. We want it to burn into the very center of the saint, into the very core of the saint. We want it to burn there and exist after we leave. We say our prayer. A man came in while we were here. He knelt down, he said his prayer, nothing to light. If there was something there to light, he probably would have lit the candle. And what remains after he's gone? The fire continues to burn, the fire of his prayer.